When I first started working harder in my 4th year, I realized that not only did I have to work harder, I also had to be efficient if I wanted to get stuff done. Like most people, I would be very inefficient working at home, where I would always gradually find myself migrating over from the seat to the couch, and I'd just be going into my YouTube browsing mode where I'd be leaning down with my laptop on my chest and just browsing and scrolling through endless mindless videos. So in order to counteract that, I first decided to get all my work done at school. This meant going to school every single day, even on a Sunday, to do all my work there. On weekdays where I only had class in the afternoons, I would also go to school first thing in the morning when I woke up and get all my work done there, because that environment was just generally more conducive to productivity. There, I wouldn't have any of the comforts of home. I would be sitting on a rigid metal chair and an empty desk space where I would have zero distractions that could in any way stray me from my main focus. But moving to school to work every single day was not enough. And this is when I started to lean towards what I would refer to as ergonomics, which are minor changes to my setup and my workflow that would make things slightly less physically demanding. For example, I tried using those anti-blue ray glasses, which have this yellow tint that are supposed to help reduce blue light entering my eyes, which apparently induce eye fatigue. And whether or not that works is a different story, but I've tried those. I also had this new laptop stand where I would have my laptop propped up higher, so I wouldn't have to always stare down onto the computer screen, which over time is going to induce neck strain as well. Despite having access to a car where I already saved a lot of time from traveling, school was still at least 30 minutes or even an hour away from my home, which adds up to quite a lot if I go there every single day. So I wanted to make changes at home so I could get the same amount of productivity without having to lose 2 hours of commuting. And the following are just a list of mini changes that I made so that my home setup feels just as productive as my library.
Moving my desk to a window to maximize sunlight so I can feel more awake. Connecting my Mac to an old display to get a larger screen to work with. Using an external mouse and keyboard so that it would be more comfortable and convenient than using the inbuilt ones on the MacBooks. Getting a monitor stand to make the monitor be level with my eyes. Changing from a keyboard with a traditional layout to a more ergonomic one to minimize wrist injury. Changing the light bulbs in my room to super bright and white ones to mimic the conditions of a library. Straightening the backrest of my chair to prevent slouching. Adding a back cushion for extra lumbar support. Raising the armrests to be level with the desk to reduce elbow fatigue. Clearing my desk and room to remove distractions and clutter. Getting a Mac Mini for a faster workflow, and getting a really nice and wide display for a bigger and better screen real estate.
So that was the setup I ended up with after making all those changes. So far it's been working quite well, though the effectiveness of some of the changes are probably significantly more than others. Buying that expensive screen was just for my own pleasure. Some might say that it's a placebo effect. I actually think that my workflow has been streamlined a lot. Not having those minor little obstacles that make me not want to work has actually made that transition from doing anything else to go into working a lot easier with a lot less friction. And ultimately, I did enjoy the process of working with such a nice environment much more than I used to. But there was still one problem. Nicole. Whenever I was working at my nearly optimized setup, she would always want to come over and interrupt the perfectly balanced environment that I had set up and start taking over and encroaching on my personal workspace.
Just working.
Can I sit here? Isn't this great?
For the longest time, whilst I was making all these changes and trying to work at my desk to be as efficient as possible, she would always be claiming that working on her sofa was just as efficient as me working on my desk, which I strongly disagreed with. And for the most part, she did stick to that for the longest time, until after a lot of persuasion, I finally got her to start off with a small little table next to the sofa, where it would be a smaller transition for her, but get her to actually experience what it's like to work by a desk. And because I think I was able to get her to actually feel like those changes meant something to her workflow, finally, recently, I got her to even get a proper desk setup and an external monitor as I did, in order to see if she could actually get herself to feel and be more productive as well. Which has so far been quite successful, though only time will tell if these changes will make a lasting difference as it did for me. Thanks for watching.